What else is there? Oh, we got a couple other signals. I mean, really, that's about it. Now, coming out of it, for the most part, there's 3 wires, really. 2 that go to this. Now, this is a big solenoid. It's a big, high-powered solenoid. All a solenoid does is it's basically an electric switch. So, a very little bit of electricity magnetizes an electromagnet, and that closes a circuit. So in this case, I don't know if you can see that bolt there, but that bolt and another one directly below it is just an electric connection for a big wire, really. There's the big wire there. So all that's going on is there's these 2 big posts, and the electromagnet just goes bonk, and that closes the circuit, and that turns the car on. So when I hit the starter, the Zilla does a few checks, or the hairball, excuse me, does a couple of checks to make sure that everything's good. And if it's happy, then bonk, you'll hear a tick, and that's the motor turning on. Up front here, that's a big circuit breaker. There, now my car's off. And by the way, this wire here, that's the one that comes from the cabin. That's the red switch. So when I pull on the red knob, it pulls this wire and shuts off the car. We'll just, there, now it's turned back on again. I still have my 12-volt battery, again, to run my radio and stuff like that. A couple of other things in here. This is a relay, very much like this big one. It's just a smaller version of the same idea. That runs the power to my hydraulic pump for my power steering. This guy here, that's a relay to run my heater. So it's 4 wires. 2 wires that deliver 12-volt electricity to turn on the relay, and then these 2 wires, that's high voltage, and that's going to my cabin heater, because the cabin heater runs at 156 volts. Lastly, this wire here. So if you're in the computer business at all, you'll recognize this. So with this, I can connect a laptop, and I can talk to my hairball. So I can tell the hairball only to give me so much power. For example, I just turned mine down. I quite literally told it not to push so hard, because then I'll get more range out of my batteries. If you wanted to do drag racing, then you can turn it up to maximum. A couple of different things you can tell it to do, like don't let the electric motor spin past a certain speed, how much power do you want to deliver when you're in reverse. Again, there's a couple of settings in there. It's really straightforward. There's only 10 or 12 settings. Or another one would be, this car had a 6-cylinder engine, and so the tachometer in the cabin is expecting the signal from a 6-cylinder engine. But this car is also made with a 4-cylinder engine, but it has a different tachometer. So there's a setting in there that says I used to have a 6-cylinder engine, so it drives the tachometer differently than if it was a 4-cylinder. But again, it's just, set variable A to 1 instead of 0. Really simple stuff. 6 more batteries up front. That's the last of the batteries. These batteries here probably weigh about the same amount that the engine used to weigh when the engine was here. On the other side is some more stuff. This is the other half of the Zilla motor controller team, if you will. As I said, it's made up of 2 parts, the hairball and the Zilla motor controller. They come together. You can't buy them separately. They're a matched team, or they're useless, basically. So this device, it's really complicated inside. The guy who invented this, his name is Otmar. Now there's a genius. He knows what he's doing, but from the outside, it's a very straightforward device. There's 2 wires leading in. They come from the battery pack. And there's 2 wires leading out. They go to the motor. It's pretty much that simple. The way that this works, the basic mode of operation is called pulse width modulation. So 15,700 times per second this turns on. How long it stays on is what determines how much power goes to the electric motor. So it uses pulse width modulation. That's how it controls the motor. I always got a kick out of that. So this is, although it's an electronic device, it's a liquid-cooled electronic device. And that's what this pipe is here. So that's just antifreeze, just like you have in your car. In here is a little reservoir. At the bottom of this pipe is a pump. It's a tiny little pump. It's maybe about that big. and that's the wire to drive that pump. In fact, I think it's from an aquarium. This pipe runs over to a radiator that I have in here. The radiator helps to keep the Zilla motor controller cool when I push it quite hard. This wire here, this comes from the hairball, and that's just a network connection, by the way. So that's the signal that tells the motor controller how much power to deliver to the engine or to the motor, depending on where my foot is on the accelerator. The harder I push, the longer the pulse width is, and the more power you get to the motor, and the faster you go. So this is a hydraulic pump. It's used to power my power steering system. Before this was an electric vehicle, there's a power steering pump or a hydraulic pump that's bolted to the gas motor, but that's gone. So I had to replace that with something else. That came with the kit. This is the reservoir for the oil. I mean, I can open that up and there's just some power steering oil in there, just like there is on any other car. This, in essence, is my gas pedal. So this is a wire here that runs to my gas pedal, or my accelerator pedal. When I step on the pedal, it pulls this wire here, and it moves this arm forward. So inside here is a potentiometer, or a dimmer switch, if you will, like a volume control on a stereo. And that sends a signal to the hairball. The hairball interprets that signal and tells the motor controller how much power to deliver. Another modification to the car is because I don't have a gasoline engine, I no longer have a vacuum to run my vacuum brake system. So this is the master cylinder. It's the same master cylinder that came with the car. All cars with power steering use vacuum as their power source to run the power brakes. But I don't have a gasoline engine anymore, so I have a vacuum pump and it's in the back. It's really dead simple. It's just a hose running from the vacuum pump to the power brake actuator. When I step on the brakes, the vacuum pump will turn on again and suck more air out. Really dead simple. So that device there, in case you can't figure out where you're looking from, you are on the passenger side of the vehicle and you're looking forward. So this whole area used to be the radiator of the car. That's the radiator for my Zilla there. This guy here, that's called a shunt. So it's really just a piece of wire, but you see those 4 bridges there. Those are calibrated. So what happens is, if you draw 100 amps of power through this piece of wire, you'll drop, let's just say, 1/10 of a volt between here and here. That's how the power meter knows how hard I'm pushing on the gas pedal, is there'll be a voltage drop across the shunt. And so that's what these green and blue wires do, is those lead up to the power meter, and the power meter detects the difference in voltage from one wire to the next, and based on the difference in voltage, it knows exactly how much power I'm pulling through the shunt. That's how a shunt works.